Welcome, brothers and sisters from some other misters. I am known as the Lincoln Lawyer in these here parts. Now, today is an important video. We're going to get into crypto crap, crypto tokens, crypto coins, crypto assets. Doesn't matter what they call it, it could still be a security. Now, what are securities? We're going to get into that after we discuss the first part, and that is how can securities be sold? First of all, like, subscribe, show me some love. Thank you so much. Okay, securities may be sold in the U.S. to U.S. residents under a public offering such as NASDAQ, Dow Jones, what you see on CNBC, that's it. Now, there's also Regulation A and Regulation D. Regulation A has two parts. One is not really used, it's too burdensome. The other part is basically like a public offering. It can be sold to anybody, but it's very difficult to get. Need financial audited statements reviewed by the SEC. It's basically a public offering, and I am not aware of any crypto ventures that are being sold under Reg A. Now, Reg D is generally what you'll see out there. It has 506B and 506C. They're very similar. Now, I'm not going to get into that right now. If you want to know more, let me know below. I can do a video on it, but basically Reg D requires sales only to accredited investors. If you don't know what that is, look it up. Basically 200K salary or 1 million in net worth, not including primary residence. There are other requirements for companies. And back 30 years ago, when the rules were introduced, that was pretty significant. Not many people fell under that definition. Today, that's quite a lot of people. So now, what is a freaking security? Okay, the definition of a security was handed down to us in 1946 by the Supreme Court in a well-known case known as SEC versus Howey, the Howey test. That case involved some land investment contracts with some citrus trees. He was selling these contracts to investors unregistered. The SEC came in, said, dude, you're selling securities. He said, They said, He said, I think not. Supreme Court came in. They said, bro, sorry, those are securities. Okay, you fucked up. And so they gave us a 4-part test that we still use today, 75 years later. What the fuck is a security? And you're going to see this 4-part test popping up on your screen very shortly. Okay, number 1, an investment of money. Number 2, in a common enterprise. Number 3, with expectation of profit. And number 4, from the efforts of others. Okay, so let's analyze these in a little bit more detail. Number 1 and 3 generally go together. You will rarely, well, actually, probably never see these tests failed. Okay, so to be a security, an asset has to pass all 4, and to not be a security, it just has to fail 1. Okay, so number 1 and 3, an investment of money and expectation of profits. Anything is money. Okay, anything can be money. Crypto is money. Case closed. That's it. It's over. Number 3, expectation of profit. I don't know too many investments where people hand over their money and they don't expect any profit. They would at least expect their principal back. But in some situations, let's say, for example, like a charitable donation, a gift of some kind, may not fall under this particular factor, and it may fail the test. So if it's a gift, charitable donation, 501c3, probably not a security, so that's fine. Number 2, common enterprise. This is a little bit tricky, but also very few, if ever, ventures will fail this test. Basically, there's a couple of tests that have been developed by various courts over the years. There's a vertical and a horizontal test. The horizontal test simply looks at the investors and whether the fortunes of the investors are intertwined. Basically, if all the investors stand to profit, or if some of them stand to lose if the investment makes money. So hardly ever will you find that some investors will lose while others stand to gain. So if you're buying a certain asset, then you want it to go up, you want to make money on it. Now, the vertical test simply looks at investors and the promoter, the issuer of this particular currency, crypto asset, whatever. And it basically looks if their fortunes are intertwined. If the same thing, if the investors profit, will the promoters also profit? And if the investors, the promoters lose, then will the investors also lose? Basically, hardly ever will this test be failed. Now, if promoters win and investors lose, I mean, that's probably can be deemed a scam and possibly a criminal offense, so that's highly unlikely. Now, I should say that if the fourth test is failed, then occasionally it's possible to fail number two. So in some circumstances, some events, some investors can profit while others lose on specific certain platforms, and also the promoters can lose money if the venture succeeds potentially. So let's go to number 4. This is the most important test. This is from the efforts of others, the passivity element. It has to be a passive investment. Okay, so basically, if the investor is actually working on the project as any kind of developer or an officer in the company, then obviously that's not a passive investment. Furthermore, if an investor has to be engaged on a particular crypto platform, they have to post stuff, they have to post videos, pictures, they have to comment, post stories, interact with the platform actively on a regular basis to earn money, then that will unlikely be a passive investment. That will be active, and this test will likely fail. Okay, now this test is the reason why the SEC has determined that Bitcoin and Ethereum and some of the other ones are not securities, because even though at one point early on, these ventures totally relied on the development teams respectively to implement the code and develop the projects, eventually the platforms and the ecosystems went live and became fully decentralized, where the computers around the world actually managed this ledger automatically, and there was little to no intervention from the issuers, the creators of these particular coins. So the question then comes in, how much reliance is necessary, and at what point is a particular platform automated that it would be there would not be reliance on the management, the issuer. So we don't know, okay? So we have no idea. There's no Supreme Court, there's no cases on this at all. There's no SEC opinions that I'm aware of. So this is basically my opinion. Don't take it as fact. I could be wrong, but if a platform is substantially complete, I'm talking about 90% or more, if it's past the alpha testing stage, if it's in beta, if it's in live testing, if it's available to customers, to investors, to the public to access, even if the issuer, the developers, still manage the platform, still fix bugs, still do updates, still oversee the overall functioning of the platform, then most likely there is no passivity element, and therefore it would not be a security. So you would be well advised to liken the platform to Bitcoin and Ether. Eventually, it was about 2 to 3 years that those platforms had been operational, that they were determined not to be securities because they were not passive, they were active, okay? There was no reliance on the development team. So that is basically it. In conclusion, the fourth factor is the most important. The platform should be substantially complete, okay, for it to avoid the classification as a security. So otherwise, chances are, if there is reliance on the developers, if there's no project going, if it's just a concept, if it's in development, if it's in-house testing, it's probably a security. So be safe. Don't give up your money. Make sure you understand how this works. Engage a specialist. Thank you for watching. I hope this has been informative. Have a fabulous day. Be cool.